guys, I just watched Ant-Man, and let's talk about it. Before we get started with this video today, please comment down below what you already think about this movie, because I know that you watched it, even though I didn't. I'm way behind. And please press that like button really fast. It will help this channel immensely and help other people find us so that we can continue to grow to 300 subscribers and beyond. Now, first of all, I just want to say that watching the trailers for this movie a while ago, I was underwhelmed by this movie. I thought it just kind of seemed like a lot of optical effects. It wasn't really a lot of substance. It wasn't a great movie, or at least that's what I thought it was going to be. So we open up with a building under construction. We see this Michael Douglas science man who apparently has some sort of scientific work that he does not want anybody else to get a hold of, and he makes that very clear by punching someone in the face. Punching in the face seems to be kind of a bit of a theme in this movie, because immediately Paul Rudd gets punched in the face by a huge black man. But apparently it's like a exiting jail kind of a ritual. And then immediately comes out to see his friend. His friend is, let's just say, a very positive guy. Also someone who has had a lot of hard knocks in his life. I think this guy is hilarious. And he's more hilarious as the movie continues to go on. Then I have to wonder how much money Baskin-Robbins spent on this movie, because this movie has a ton of ads for Baskin-Robbins in it. Paul Rudd goes to work for Baskin-Robbins. There's this running gag of like, Baskin-Robbins always finds out. They paid a ton of money. Immediately, I know that the bald guy is evil, which I'm not really a fan of. There were the best one-liner lines in this movie. Your fiance is an asshat. You know what? I'm good. Who are you? Who is she? What's going on? And can I go back to jail now? My days breaking into things and stealing shit are over. I want you to break into a place and steal some shit. Anyway, that's just some of them. This movie was hilarious. I really identified with Paul Rudd. The fact that he is a single dad, and also that life has just given him a lot of hard knocks. I liked what this movie did with kind of subtly talking to us about the ways life is really difficult, like for felons. How do you reintegrate back into society? Kind of seems like the best option you have is to just go back into crime. Even if you have changed and you're trying to do a better thing for yourself and for your family, where can you get work? You can't get work. You can't find any place to work. You can't do anything except for crime, which just leads to the cycle of crime. This movie just brings up a lot of questions that makes you think, yeah, that would be really difficult. I really despised the mother in this movie. And of course, I related to this movie, so maybe that's why I despised the mothers in this movie. One thing I will say on behalf of my ex-wife is that she does not take away as much time as she possibly can from my time with my daughter. In this case, this woman did, and she very clearly did not want her daughter to see him. She even says at one point, you're her hero, but then basically you cannot see her until you pay child support, get an apartment, this list of things. You don't take time away from your child from seeing their father when, especially, your child wants to see their father and the father is not abusive. And to watch this mother do that was very, very anger-inducing for me. However, I will say that I was glad to see the stepfather in this situation, because he was a form of stability and a form of care that this child needed in this situation. But this mother was horrendous and terrible. It's pretty cool to see how good of a thief Paul Rudd was in this movie. Oh no, bald man is gonna kill a sheep. I'm pretty sure his name is Darren. I'm not positive if his name is Darren, but he looks like a Darren. Actually, almost all of these names, I didn't really know any of the characters' names, but I felt very invested in these characters. So I don't really see that as much of an issue, because you care so much for these characters. Who cares about their names? The details in the shrinking scenes, the details in this movie are so good. Basically, Paul Rudd is set up to go steal a suit. he's kind of set up to steal a suit from the Michael Douglas character. You cannot put on a suit in 10 seconds. I can't even put on my shirt in 10 seconds. The bald guy tries to shrink down a lamb and ends up killing the lamb. We realize during this time that the love interest of this movie is really more of a double agent. One thing they do say in this movie is, I think our first move should be calling the Avengers. And I have a question. Can you just call the Avengers? 911 Avengers, please. Yes, I would love to have you come and help me get my cat out of the tree, please. I feel like that would get overrun very fast. And I don't feel like that's a good idea. There is a really, really good moment when the Michael Douglas scientist guy says, it's not about saving our world, it's about saving theirs. Every time that there's one of those moments that's really, really poignant, Paul Rudd just completely ruins it. Then we move into one of the best montage scenes I have ever seen. Go from a keyhole, that's how you punch. If it ain't broke, she punches him right in the face. The girl just like completely beats him up. We also get our, of course, gratuitous shirtless scene, because every Marvel movie needs one of those.
All right, it's just a game, never mind. Oh, what, are you mad at me?
And his fault.
Hank wants you outside for target practice.
What? Around this time, it becomes very clear that the daughter, love interest, double agent girl has some major anger issues with her dad. It was at this time also that I went, this movie has such great pacing. All of a sudden it slowed down, and it was just the break that I needed. And you kind of delved into the characters just a little bit. Basically, you see that she is upset about something revolving around her mother's death and her dad. Her dad left after her mother died, sent her away to a boarding school. There wasn't a lot of emotional closure during that time. And then we find out the actual reason why that is. And it's because the inventions that he created ended up causing the death of her mother. The double agent girl, or Michael Douglas's daughter, Evangeline Lilly? Is it Evangeline Lilly? I think it might be Evangeline Lilly. It's Evangeline Lilly. I wonder if maybe Michael Douglas's wife may be able to come back from wherever she's hurtling, where time and space means nothing. But I suppose then she'd be younger. It might be a really interesting dynamic. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Another really, really sweet moment was, I lost your mother. I didn't mean to lose you too. And I was like so on the edge of tears. And then Paul Rudd goes, this is awesome. It becomes so awkward. I've never seen that kind of humor used in a movie so well. At one point, they decide to break into the main lab. Basically, the bald guy has caught on to what they're planning to do and is kind of planning his own counterattacks. And the stepdad finds Paul Rudd. And at this point, I was kind of like, oh, I really hope he gets on board with Paul Rudd. He doesn't. They really subverted my expectations several different times, which is part of the reason why this movie really held my interest a lot. There's so many different parts at play that come into this, and the more that I delve into it, the more interesting it gets. I'm sure if I actually read comic books, if I knew how to read, it would be amazing. But I don't know how to read, so I'm not going to do that. Every time I see one of the zoom-ins in this movie, I love it. After Paul Rudd has been detained by the stepdad guy, who is also a cop, they're about to go back to jail, but then they find out that something is happening where Cassie is. I love how both the dad and the stepdad just love this little girl to pieces, and they'll do anything for her. That's the way I hope, and it's also the way that I very much expect things to be for my little girl, because she has a stepdad now, and he better love her. She better be really, really loved by him. I loved seeing that in this movie. I loved seeing how much these two people loved them, and how that's like, you're kind of a lucky little girl if you can have a lot of people who love you, several people who love you that much and will sacrifice for you. One thing that I thought was hilarious too then is an aunt comes down the stairs and just like mows over the stepdad, which is hilarious. But then as the aunt comes out, there are people, and it seems like a really throwaway joke until you think about it for just a second, but he says something about, oh, that's a messed up looking dog. I think in so many ways, not just politically, but in so many ways, we see what we want to see. Instead of trying to be objective about it and realizing that's an ant coming out of the house. We just won't allow ourselves to think it's an ant, and instead we'll call the ant a dog. So when Paul Rudd realizes his daughter is in deep, deep danger at this point, and he can do something about it, she is with her stepdad. She's loved. She's been taken care of. He runs and does the particle decelerator thing and goes deep inside of this other character, knowing that he's going to die. And just tears him apart, kills him. But then he hears his daughter's voice, and he kind of wakes up out of this blur. But he finds a regulator, and I wonder if he had made another regulator. Tell me down in the comments what actually happens here, if you know what actually happens here. Because he takes this little regulator and he puts it in, and he comes back. Then his little girl comes running up to him, and she says, I love you, Daddy. And he says, I love you too so much. And that just made me, like, I want to cry now thinking about it. It was so touching, and it was the one moment in this movie where he didn't ruin that like touching moment, and I thought that was really good. This movie had everything in it, and I'd actually kind of like to watch this movie with my daughter. The problem is there are some moments, a couple moments here and there where I'm like, yeah, it's not really kid friendly. Most of those moments wouldn't be too understood by kids, but there are a couple that would be pretty understood. So I'm not sure that I want to actually expose her to that yet. But overall, I really loved this movie. I mean, for an adult, this movie had me cackling at times. It's really close. If it's not better than the Avengers, it's really close to better than the Avengers. It's like a step down from the Avengers. I think I'd have to say Avengers Ultron is better than this. I think I'd have to say that, but it's so close. I loved this movie. And for me personally, it had so many things that just like clicked with me. If I'm going to give the effects to anybody, this movie wins effects over Ultron like by 1,000 times. This was a beautiful movie, incredibly well done. I have no idea how they did what they did, but I'm sure glad they did it. What do you think about Ant-Man? And what do you think I might think about the future movies coming up? Let me know down in the comments. Like, subscribe, share. I would love to get this channel up to 300 if we can. So share away, let people know about these Marvel reviews, our Disney movies ranked and reviewed. We've got some cool stuff coming up, and I'm excited to talk to you guys again soon. You have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.